Man, it's really playing with my OCD though, because I know in an RPG, you're not just going to get everything and level up every single stat. You kind of have to strike a balance
Yeah.
and decide what kind of character you want to be. But I'm like, no, I want every stat. How do I get every stat? And you
I
can't.
know that's why I did the cheat. That's why I cheated. So that I have every stat. Like you can go in and you can uh edit your save file to increase your stats, and you can increase all your stats to 20.
You cheated at Disco Elysium?
I told you I've beaten it 2 times already in the like way past, and so I was like, you know what? I want to see everything in this game.
I didn't know you cheated. I thought
And
you just did it.
no, there's so much that you can't see, that you won't see if you don't, like, it's so weird because I guess in any given playthrough you're supposed to see about, what, like a fourth of the game.
Sure.
So everything I do, it's just pop up after pop up after pop up as like different skills of mine are talking to me.
But you cheated at Disco Elysium. I'm recording this. Everyone, Matt cheated at Disco Elysium. What do you have to say for yourself, Matt?
I highly suggest cheating. Okay, I suggest your
Wow.
first playthrough, you don't cheat at Disco Elysium. I highly suggest everybody who plays Disco Elysium cheats at it at least once. Like,
Great.
everyone should bump all of their stats up to 20 and then just go through and just like succeed at every check. It rules.
Great. This is a gaming podcast, and we're like, you know what? Fuck it. Just cheat.
Hey, games are meant to be played, right? Not.
Hey everyone, Pushing Up Rose is here. Welcome back to Save Your Game. As always, with me, the brilliant, the clever, the very special extraordinaire, Matt Ockham. Hey, Matt.
Hey, I thought maybe there was like another guy on the podcast.
You're like, surely
You're
not.
like, with me,
Surely
the
this
brilliant,
is
the
not
clever,
me.
the extraordinaire, and then like another call like opens up, like another name pops up in the call, and somebody's like, "Yes, I am Raphael. Thank you for having me on your podcast."
Ron Gilbert comes in. He's like, "Here I am." I'm like, "Yep, that's it."
And then you just hang up on me.
Yeah, I don't know how this guy Matt got in here. Let's just cancel the call.
How's
How
it
you
going,
doing, Matt?
I'm doing okay. My allergies have been really wilding out lately.
Yeah, it's spring, baby.
This is a this is a pollen count for the ages.
Breaking news on the Save Your Game podcast. Pollen count very high. Highest it's been in a very long time.
Pollen count so high. This is a high pollen count. You guys want to see a high pollen count? You got one right here.
Who else is suffering from springtime
I'm Mucus
allergies?
Matt. I'm Mucus Matt. This is
You can do it. I believe in you.
Rocky Roses, Scooby-Doo said. Scooby-Doo stopped in for a second.
Risky roses, because I'm sneezing everywhere.
Because pushing up, so is there a P? Is there a yucky word?
Pushing up pollen!
Pushing up pollen!
Nope,
pollen
we still got an R. We still got an R. Wait, pollened up roses.
This sucks. This is the worst content we've ever given the people.
I think it's the best content. I think you're wrong.
Have you been playing anything lately?
Yes, I have, Matt.
Okay.
Did you hear my voice start to waver? I feel like it wavered for a second from excitement, like a dog tail wagging.
I couldn't tell if it was excitement or like you've been playing something incredibly harrowing.
Yeah, it's both. I've been playing Disco Elysium. I've never played it. And I think the reason why, very candidly, is because the fandom got a little bit much for a short spell there. You know what I mean? And I have friends who played it too, and they're like, yeah, it got a little bit much for a little while. So
I am
kind of set it aside.
surprised how big of a fandom this game built, right? Because
Yeah.
it has it has its fans in adventure games and like extreme fans of RPGs, right? Because it's kind of
Yes.
both. But it also has a fandom amongst like capital G gamers, like the
Yes. Yeah.
the real gamey gamer crowd,
Yeah.
and usually they don't like to read this much.
Right.
So
It's maybe the heaviest narrative game that I've ever come across. It's
yeah,
very dialogue heavy, which is fine because it's game heavy too. There's so many tasks. There's so many. I'm so distressed. I'm like every time I text you about disco, it's not like I'm having so much fun. It's always like I am so anxious right
you're just
now.
like, I read a letter and died.
I don't know if I should do this. Can you lose at this game? Can you play it wrong? I don't know. So I've
Yeah,
been, not I haven't been reading anything about it online. I've only been talking to friends about it that have played it and like it. And I do really love it. It's unlike anything that I've ever played. But you're right. It seems like I'm enjoying the game, but I'm distressed a lot of the time. And I think it's because my poor neurodivergent brain is like, oh no, you got to do everything. You can't
yeah,
just
yeah.
you got to be the best cop. Kim's got to like you. You got to do every task, and there's a lot of tasks that you can do in this game, which is kind of why I think I like it so much. Is beyond, obviously it has a main story that you can follow, but
Right.
kind of like every RPG ever made, you have side quests that you can decide to do or not do. You don't have to do them. I have accepted all of them thus far.
Yeah. Well, so you say like you want to be the best cop, and I agree. I feel the same way when I'm playing the game, but there's a push and pull because
Mhm.
you want to be the best cop, but you also want to be the best force for anarchy because
I
those are the two
know.
things that the main character, I was about to say his name, but I think that's actually a spoiler kind of.
Yeah, let's not say his name.
But those are the two things you want you are as a person in that
Mhm.
game, as like a force of pure chaos and a cop, and the two things are diametrically opposed, or so you
But we're
think.
trying to make it work. Like
And
I'm
you
trying to make it
yeah,
work.
so every time it's like, okay, I could help this little kid sell drugs, or
Right.
I could confiscate the drugs, and I kind of want to do both at the same time.
Yeah, it's rough. There's some
Yeah.
tough decision making, and I've never played a digital game with dice rolls. I've played D&D with actual dice.
Mm,
I've never played a game that has like randomized digital dice roll, which is so brilliant to me. I really do love it. I love the excitement of passing a dice check, just like in a tabletop RPG. It's like, oh, successful roll. I can sing karaoke. I'm so excited. And I
right.
love like the mundane things you need to pass to be able to do them successfully. I needed to pass a dice check to sing karaoke successfully,
Yeah.
which I did. I had a very high, I dressed in the most ridiculous clothes that gives me better stats, and I just went for it. And I had him look at his partner and be like, "Look, Kim, I'm doing karaoke." I was so excited. He's like, "Yeah, I see that. It's great."
In the middle of the song, you can say that?
Right before you start,
Oh, okay.
you can either start singing or you can kind of, like look around, see who's there. And I looked directly at Kim, and then afterwards, I dedicated the song to Kim, and he liked it.
Aw. Aw.
So that's what I've been playing. We'll talk more in depth about it, I'm sure. Let's just say I can see why people either quite love it or just don't want to deal with
Right.
such heavy narrative and heavy dialogue. But personally, I'm enjoying it. I know I sound stressed out, but I am. That's just my brain for you.
And that's the
I
proper way to play Disco Elysium. I think
yeah.
it is supposed to be a harrowing, not to use that word again in the same, but it's supposed to be a
Word for
harrowing
it.
experience.
Also, one of the funniest games I've ever played, which is such
Oh
a
my god.
juxtaposition, and I'll explain more in a future episode. But in the meantime, Matt, what have you been playing?
Oh, I've been playing Disco Elysium.
I know we've both been playing it. That's
And again,
amazing.
we
How
are
many
going to
hours did you
talk
sink
about it.
in?
I don't know, less than you, judging by your Steam playtime, because I've played this.
Listen,
I've
wait,
played this
wait,
game
listen,
before.
listen
Yeah.
though. I did accidentally leave it running for a while. Just want to put that out there. Just on my desktop. So I don't know how accurate that playtime is.
But I started a new game and got a little ways into it and realized that, like, I played the game before, so I knew a lot of this stuff, and I had a thought. I was
Mhm.
like, you know what? I want to see what happens when you pass every check, and then I want to see what happens when you fail every check. So
Mm.
I went in and I edited my stats so that basically I pass every single check I come to, except for the ones that are impossible.
You're saying that you booted up every stat.
Yes.
And so that must mean that you're constantly getting perception things and updates
Yes.
and like voices. Like what? That
Yeah, so
sounds
I'm
overwhelming.
but I can skip the stuff that I know, right? Like, so I know so much of the main story anyway. I
Mhm.
can skim that stuff, and then I'm basically only reading all this new stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Plus the voice acting is incredible. So
Very
you can
good.
just so you don't even have to read all the time if you don't want. You can just sit back and listen to these incredible We are talking about this so much for a game that we are about to go really deep on
Now, it's
in
okay.
like
There's
the next
so much
episode.
more to talk about, I
Yeah.
promise. Like I have thoughts. I have thoughts. The good
But
kind, not like THOT thoughts.
I've got a collection of thoughts over
I got a
here,
collection of thoughts. They're
and they all want to talk about Disco Elysium.
That's
So
great.
I I'm really enjoying it and
I'm glad.
doing it this way, and then I am going to go back through with all my stats because I didn't know this. You don't have to put stats in everything. You don't
Right.
have to use up all your points. You can
Right.
set all your stats to 1 and then click
Oof.
create character. And you're just in the game and horrible at everything. And I don't know
Please
how
report
one
back on that because I want to
Yeah.
know, honestly, if you can quote fail. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you can die. You
You can
can die
die.
from
Yeah.
low morale and you can die from low health.
Health.
And
Yeah.
I do not know how you keep alive
Right.
with your stats that low, but it'll be a fun challenge trying to find out. So I've been playing Disco Elysium. I finally, and this was I could have beaten this weeks ago, but
Uh-huh.
I was being a completionist. I just beat Marvel Midnight Suns, which I
Oh, you
talked
beat
about on this game
it.
before.
Well, I'm surprised. I'm surprised because you were super into that game. I would have thought you would have played it 5 times by now.
No, I was playing it. It was again for a while my go-to game, as I've said on the show before. But I was living in the last like I had the last quest ready to go, and I was
Yeah.
just playing missions over and over again, just going through and like playing
Nice.
missions and getting resources and upgrading things and making all my guys as good as they can be.
I love
Um,
doing stuff like that.
but the end of Marvel Midnight Suns is amazing, and since I'm gonna kind of spoil it, since this is not a since this is an adventure game podcast and not a
Yeah.
strategy game podcast, so I
Yeah,
don't
go for
think
it.
many people will care. But your final mission, you get to bring every hero along rather than playing just 3 characters per mission. There's like these mechanics where you can rotate characters mid-fight. So you still only have
Oh.
3 at a time, but you find these like abilities to switch. So it's really cool. Like you're Wolverine and Captain America and Hulk, and then suddenly you're Ghost Rider and Magic and I don't know, uh, Iron Man, right?
That's
And
cool.
it's just so cool. It ends so well, and I know I've heard the game didn't do that great financially,
Yeah. That's too bad.
so we probably won't see another one.
Yeah.
But man, I really hope that this was like a passion project for the the studio's Firaxis and the publisher's 2K, so I really doubt a passion project is going to get through. But
Probably not.
I am very disappointed that it didn't do better, and I'll be very disappointed when inevitably it never gets a sequel.
Oh,
It's
you guys know what to do. Go try to get a sequel started.
This should have been, and granted, 2022 was a crazy year for games, right? Was that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 2022 was Elden Ring and
okay.
God of War Ragnarok, and like,
oh god, yeah.
Inscription, Vampire Survivors. I get why this was not a big part of everybody's like Game of the Year discussions in 2022.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it was.
It's really the luck of the draw too. You know, it's the same thing with movies. What are you competing with? Even if it's a good movie, if you're competing with the best like upper echelons of movies.
Yeah,
it's tough. You know.
It just didn't stand a chance, but it bums me out because it's just so good.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, thank you.
Even those not as popular games will have a fan base. You never know. It might in the future get a cult following. Like Grim Fandango, that did very bad. For the same reasons. Other games kind of trumped it at the time. Did very bad commercially. But now look at it. It's definitely a cult classic.
But I think since it's Marvel, right?
Yeah.
What they'll just do is they'll be like, okay, that approach didn't work. Let's try a new approach on our games, right? Yeah. Like, it doesn't seem like the sort of thing where somebody, like, if this was its own property, I could see that happening, it getting a cult following and then people advocating for it. But again, since it's Marvel, they're just going to be like, all right, Midnight Suns didn't work, scrap that, and think of something brand new, and that bums me out. Because also, as I'm playing this game, I'm like, an X-Men game would be perfect for this, because the video game world has never figured out how to do the X-Men right. There's so many personalities and so many unique powers that it's people have always, and it requires a team. The X-Men aren't as good solo as they are together, and it's hard to juggle that in gameplay.
Yeah,
but this is like the perfect way to do it, and it would have been great. All right, Matt. I'll stop going on about it. But
guys, Matt is a huge X-Men fan. If you didn't put that together yet, you might have put it together, I don't know, but if it needs reiterating, very big X-Men fan.
Yeah, I doubt there's a person listening to this that has read more X-Men comics than me. And if you think you have, email us and we'll compete.
Holy, that's a big all right, guys, you heard it here first. Yeah. Matt is challenging you.
The amount of X-Men I've read is nearly unconscionable. So I think you would have to be the hosts of Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, that podcast. You would have to be them to have read more X-Men comics than me.
Lord. Okay, with that note, I'm glad this gauntlet was thrown down.
Yeah, threw a gauntlet. Yeah.
I can't wait to check our email to see if anyone's challenging.
And like, how would they even what would we even say? They'd be like, I've read 1,000, and I'd be like, I've read 2,000, right? Like, how would you even quantify?
I have no idea, but I'm gonna give it some thought to see how we can prove.
It's such an impossible challenge. Yeah.
I'm just gonna have to grill you on every single comic and be like, so this one, tell me the whole story.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. We just like bring somebody on and have a trivia off.
All right, I am going to start our interstitial music, because then we're gonna answer some questions.
Oh, hell yeah!
Yeah, it's our second Q&A session. So we got some great questions. Thank you for writing them in. And we're going to be answering them after these messages. That makes no sense.
We've got, the instruments of the song are going to be playing one series of messages for you.
everyone, we're back. I'm Pushing Up Roses. With me, Matt Aucamp. Matt, how was your break?
It's me, Matt. My break was good. I took a hat off.
Cool.
Because I got hot, and then I got uncomfortable, so I put the hat back on.
Okay,
and then I got hot again, and I took the hat off.
Cool.
How was your break?
Good. I thought about Disco Elysium. I thought about what I should be doing. It was stressful, but now we're back here. So
that's what breaks are supposed to be. Breaks are supposed to be stressful. That's what people don't.
Very stressful.
That's what people don't tell you, is that work is supposed to be relaxing and breaks are supposed to be stressful.
But now we can kind of relax and be a little less formal today because we're going to be answering your questions.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. I really love doing Q&A episodes.
Good, I'm glad.
So, do you want me to just dive right in and read our first question?
Yeah, dive right in. Just dive into the deep end.
All right, deep end. Good Brent, dogs says, we know your level of interests can cloud how you receive a game. What adventure games have you been hyped for that disappointed you at first, but were better in hindsight or replay?
Mm-hmm.
Conversely, were there any you had no interest in or had low expectations for that impressed you at first, but then didn't live up to the initial impressions?
Okay.
So wait, the first one is you started playing it, you're like, I don't like this, but I'll push through, and then you're like, I really like this. His second question is Brent, a triple fake out, where you're like, I don't think I'm gonna like this. Oh, I like this. Oh wait, I don't like this.
I'm not sure, because I read the question prior. I don't know, honestly, if I have an answer for the first, for the second part. I do have an answer for the first one, though.
Right, okay.
So would you like to answer first, or would you like me to answer?
I want you to answer first. I've not looked at these questions. This will become apparent throughout this episode, but I have not looked at the questions first. So I'm going to be answering everything on the fly. So I might.
Sure, that's fine.
Need to take some space.
I would say that the closest thing that happened to me that I was very hyped for and kind of disappointed me was probably Breath of the Wild. I had a very hard time getting into it, which is weird because that game is it's one of my favorite games now of all time. But I was very hyped. I'm always hyped for a Zelda game, but your mileage may vary. There's a lot of Zelda games and some are better than the others.
Absolutely,
and I think what happened was I just wasn't, like the general public, I wasn't used to Zelda suddenly becoming Skyrim, like this very open world, and I was never really an Elder Scrolls fan, so I was like, I don't know. But obviously I played it. Somebody convinced me to play it, and it wasn't just better in hindsight, it was the best in hindsight. It is absolutely one of my favorite games now. It's my favorite Zelda game, even more than maybe Ocarina. And that's my answer. What about you, Matt?
So you've inspired me to also pick a Zelda game.
Okay.
Because I, when I was young, I played and beat Ocarina of Time, and I loved it, like everybody. And then Majora's Mask came out, and I was super hyped for it, and I turned it on, and it was one of my early experiences of being like, oh, this doesn't feel as... It doesn't feel like they put as much effort into this game as the last one, is what my initial feelings were. It was like, I feel like I was too young to understand this, but my feelings were like, oh, they just reused all the assets. It feels like they took the game Ocarina of Time and just like remixed it, like just tried to make a different story out of it. And I put it away for years. And not that long ago, just like 3 or 4 years ago, I picked it back up and played it again, and it is so good. It's one of my favorite Zelda games. It is so well written. It is beautifully structured. I understand why people have trouble with it, because it is very different than any other Zelda game. And it requires a certain type of thought process that
Yeah.
I totally understand is hard for people. But yeah, I absolutely love it. It might be my favorite Zelda game.
This question comes from Matthew, not
Nuh-uh.
Matt,
Oh, okay.
but Matthew. Have you ever played any of the games in the Siberia series? That's what introduced me to adventure games. Okay, so no.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
really?
very yes, truly. I do have them. I have the Siberia games.
Hmm.
I made an attempt, and I don't really know what happened there. I don't know if I didn't like the graphic style, if I just felt that it was desolate. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure what happened there, but I didn't play them when they came out. So I keep in mind, I have no nostalgia for them. I so like that happens, right? It's kind of like people who grew up with like The Princess Bride versus someone who's never seen it. It's never going to live up to their expectation, and I think that's what happened. But I know they're beloved. Matt, have you played them?
Interesting. Yeah, I have played Siberia 1 and 2. I'm trying to remember if I played Siberia 3. I'm actually going to pull up the wiki to see cuz I remember the last moment of the last Siberia game I played. Yeah, okay, I played 1 and 2. I did not play 3. You know, there's some interesting puzzles. The world is interesting, but
Yeah.
it's got all those problems that early 2000s adventure games had, right?
Yeah.
It is, as you say, Rose, is very desolate.
It's
Um,
a little clunky too. I feel like I remember it being
mhm.
desolate and a little bit clunky, and that's kind of that will put me off of an adventure game real quick.
It's pretty clunky. It has the dialogue is not great,
Mm.
similar to uh similar to like Keepsake or what's another game from that era? Uh The
King's
Longest
Quest
Journey.
8.
The Longest Journey or something
Yeah, I was
like
gonna
that,
say
where
maybe The Longest Journey. Yeah,
it's like the dialogue is a little clunky and a
yeah,
little maybe poorly translated too.
yeah.
And uh there are some really amazing moments. The last moment of Siberia 2 is incredible. And the last moment of Siberia 1 is incredible too. Kate Walker makes a very like huge decision at the
Mhm.
end, and it's like, fuck yeah. But the game moment to moment is just really difficult to
Yeah.
stomach because it's just so slow, and it's the sort of, again, it has that problem of the early 2000 adventure games where you want to walk between two locations, you have to
Mhm.
pass between like 9 screens. It's
Yeah.
like you're just walking through from like you're outside a gate, you're like on a street, and then you see a gate and you see like a fountain beyond the gate. So then
Yeah.
you walk towards the gate, and now suddenly you're in another screen where you have to walk through the gate. Now you're on another screen where you're just inside the gate. Now you're on another screen where you're on a path leading to the fountain. Now you're on another screen with the fountain. And it's like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
could have just
Yeah.
there was nothing between those two places. You could have just taken me from the street to the fountain.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was going for something atmospheric, right?
Mhm.
But again, it's not the game or story itself. It's more like you said, that kind of 2000s
Yeah.
issue that maybe it's kind of a product of its time. Maybe if I had played it then, it would have been different. One of
Right.
my favorite games is King's Quest 3, and that's no one's favorite game, and it's because I played it when I was very young. And so it was like a product of the time that I was very,
Yeah.
very excited about. But yeah, thank you for. I actually love hearing about what got people into adventure games. So I'm glad. I'm glad that you like them so much, Matthew.
So, this one's from Eric.
Hi, Eric.
He says, "Have either of you played A Space for the Unbound? It's a game from an Indonesian studio that came out last year, and it's one of my favorite adventure games I've played in years, mostly due to the story."
Okay.
Uh, he'd love to hear us deep dive on it sometime. Did you play Space for the Unbound?
I'm going to be very frank with you. I'm not familiar with this one. I know it seems like I know every adventure game, guys. I know, I get it. I don't. Yeah, I'm not familiar with this by name, but I am going to look it up real quick.
It is a game that I own on Steam. I have also not played it. I have an interest in it.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
very well reviewed.
Oh, it's very interesting looking. Maybe
It
we should do
is
something
based
on
on
this.
the cover art does not speak too highly for it. It looks
Yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah,
agree.
it looks like one of those dime a dozen point and click games that people, but
Yeah.
then when you open up the page, it's like interesting pixel art, and
Yeah.
it looks like there's combat in it. It seems like there's a lot of facets to this game.
Yeah, no,
So
hear you me. With adventure games, I try to ignore some of the cover art because it doesn't like historically, it doesn't always speak well, let's be honest. Do you remember the first do you remember the Nintendo version for like King's Quest 5? It's awful. It makes no sense. I think it was King's Quest 5. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's literally a cover for one of the King's Quest games that's just a dude in knight armor. You know, all those times that King Graham wore knight armor. So yeah, I don't judge adventure games by their covers or by their cover art. I immediately looked at the screen caps, and yeah, I'm very interested in this. I like this suggestion a lot. This person wants to be addressed as Mop. That's very cute. I feel like I could name my next cat Mop because
hey, Mop.
my cat's name is Basket. Oh, Basket and Mop. Okay,
Basket
anyway,
and
sorry.
Mop.
So Mop asks, are there any times in adventure games where you wish you could do something personally reasonable that the protagonist, for whatever reason, refused to go along with? I feel like this happens a lot in adventure games. Even I feel like I've even had an experience I just had, and I'm trying to think of what it was. I think it might have been in The Last Door.
The answer to this is yeah, I've had this happen so many times, and
Yeah.
it is an incredibly frustrating thing in an adventure game. Yeah, it's that doesn't work problem.
Yeah,
right?
that doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you
Have you played Discworld? Because that game encompasses your question quite well, Mop.
right. I've complained about this very recently with the Legend of Skye. There
Okay.
are and it does have a lot of unique dialogue for these things, but it is incredibly frustrating as like you need to cut something open and you have a handsaw and a knife and an arrow, and
Mhm.
she just has a reason for why none of those will work.
Right.
And or
Right.
you need to grab something that's a little out of your reach, and you have a fireplace poker, and you have you like whatever, you have like a series of stick like things, and she's like, that's not long enough, that's not strong enough, that won't reach. And it's just like,
You reminded me. You reminded me of what I'm thinking of, but go on.
so I really like the Legend of Skye. It feels a lot like a Lost LucasArts game in so
Sure.
many ways. It's got just the right sort of feeling for it, but that is a thing that I find just so exhausting because
Mhm.
you're not put into a world that makes sense to you. You're put into a world with rules that you don't know,
Right.
and so it's perfectly reasonable for you to say, "Oh, I need to reach this thing. It's up high. I'm going to use the fireplace poker to reach it."
Yeah. Yeah.
Until she says, "Oh, it's not long enough." And then you're like, "Okay, well, I don't know what's long enough."
You want to hear my more specific answer?
Go ahead.
There is, and it was The Last Door, and
Mhm.
you reminded me with this kind of stick analogy here. In The Last Door, there's something in a very large cage that you can't reach, and in your inventory you have like long things to help you to reach it. I don't remember if it was a fire poker, but I had something. And I
Right.
couldn't use it. I'm like, I just don't understand why I can't. Logically, I should be able to do this. I don't
Right.
know why I can't do this. You have to roll up a piece of paper. The thing you're trying to get is a feather. You have to roll up a piece of
Right.
paper, blow through it, and then it flitters to the ground. And I'm like, I couldn't use my stick for
I had the
that?
same problem. I had the
Yeah,
same problem.
hard one.
Yeah, with that puzzle, I think either I looked up a walkthrough or I just did the use everything on everything. No, I looked up a walkthrough because I was like, that sucks. That's
Yeah, no,
bullshit.
I had to use everything on everything. That is absolutely what I did for that. It's one of the biggest criticisms in adventure games, I
Yeah.
would say, is the that won't work. Uh,
Yes.
what are we gonna call that? The that won't work idea. There's some we
Yeah.
should call it something, right?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it should have a name. That
It should.
Francisco Gonzalez gives a really good talk on this at
Yeah.
a recent Adventure, or was it Adventure X? Yeah, it was
It
last
might,
year's
yeah, it
Adventure X,
probably
I think.
was. Yeah.
We'll work on it. Hey, if anyone wants to email us and give it like for a nickname for the that doesn't work problem, let us
Yeah,
know.
we'd love to I truly I would love to hear it.
Okay, so this one is from Dana Brain. Dana Brain's written us before, right?
I don't know. Have
I
you,
think there
Dana?
was
Write again to let us know.
Write again to let us know if you wrote us in a previous.
Dana, keep writing us, please.
Yeah, okay, so Dana Brain asks if either of us have played the Cat Lady.
I couldn't. I couldn't do it.
You couldn't play it?
I could not. I did play quite a bit of it.
Mm.
The Cat Lady, just by nature, is a depressing one. That's not bad. I believe video games are art, and I don't believe that they need to be enjoyed in any conventional way.
Yeah, because as we know, artists suffer.
Artists suffer. Look, I'm anxious about Disco Elysium right now, and yet here I am. The Cat Lady had some things that hit a little too close to home for me. So it's actually it's interesting. It's the perfect game for me to have an opinion on and to play. And I love the artwork. I love it. It's using like my favorite color palettes and everything, kind of this red, black and white situation. But I mean I could give it a retry when I'm in a better headspace, but that's a rough one. Cat Lady's a rough one. What about you, Matt?
Yeah. So I have played Burnhouse Lane.
Oh yeah, you've mentioned that before, yeah.
And I loved Burnhouse Lane. Beginning to
Okay.
end, I thought Burnhouse Lane was a masterpiece. And it was incredibly disturbing and terrifying and weird. It has a very similar, it has a very similar look to it.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was playing Burnhouse Lane, my partner began playing the Cat Lady, and she loved it as much as I loved Burnhouse Lane, and she really wanted me to play it. So I went to play Cat Lady, and it felt like an underpolished version of Burnhouse Lane. And I know
that's too bad that you played that first.
Yeah,
then
I know,
okay.
and I know it's not. I know it has value, and I think I think I was waiting for Burnhouse Lane to burn off before I went back to Cat Lady, so that I can experience it like it's fresh, and experience it for what it is.
That's legit, though. It does happen sometimes if you play something that was a little more technically advanced first, and then you kind of go back. It feels like you can be backtracking, but I do think the Cat Lady is worth your retry if you ever want to do that.
These Harvester games, that's the developer, Harvester Games, they are...
Oh, I thought you were talking about Harvester, the best adventure game in the world. Go on.
One day don't worry, one day we'll do a deep dive on Harvester.
I would love to do a deep dive on Harvester.
We should dedicate an entire episode to Harvester and talk about it for like 3 hours.
Let's do it.
We can spend 3 hours on why the mom responds to that one word that way.
Yes, we can.
Most people won't know what we're talking about, but the few people who do are they're going to be losing it. So these Harvester games are really they're just really intense.
Yes, they're intense
in every single way. And yeah, I do want to play the Cat Lady. I want to go back to it and play the whole thing. Going on the recommendation list, we got 2 now. Space for the Unbound, the Cat Lady.
So, our next question is about the cheese puzzle. from King's Quest V from Courtney.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so excited. I could talk about the cheese puzzle for way too long. I see a lot of people talking about the King's Quest V puzzle to power the wand and wondering why cheese does the trick. I'm pretty sure it's a pop culture reference to an ad campaign around that time where the slogan was "Behold the power of cheese." And that's very interesting. I feel like I do remember that because this is our generation. I remember "Behold the power of cheese." Do you?
Like in a very vague way. I
Yeah, I
remember
feel
the phrase "Behold the power of cheese," but I do not remember seeing the ad.
right. It's definitely something that I have to dig deep into my brain. That's obviously been like uh
Yeah.
hidden for a very long time.
That's a really cool association
Yes, it
that
is.
who is this question asker?
Courtney.
Courtney. That is a really cool association that Courtney made. Would never have thought about that. That's the problem with doing pop culture jokes
Yeah.
is like when they come out of context, if they're not, you know, if the reference isn't basically like cited in some way, you
Right.
can lose it completely and it can just become a nothing. Um,
Right.
this is a sort of like an anthropology thing. There's an example
Mhm.
of this in tattoos, right? A lot of people
Mhm.
get pop culture tattoos,
Sure
and they
do.
have been for since you know the beginning of tattoos, which is the beginning of mankind. So they,
Yeah.
people get tattoos about something in their culture, and when anthropologists look back, they see like a woman on a person's arm or something like that, and they're like, "Oh, that must have been that person's true love."
Yeah.
And there have been people that have gone back, like there's tattoo historians who
Yeah.
go back and like, okay, this assumption was wrong. This tattoo this person had was on like a box of raisins at the time,
Right.
right? This person
Yeah.
was referencing something silly from their culture in the whatever 1800s or something
Yeah.
that we have since forgotten about, and now for the rest of time nobody's going to know what that thing is. But yeah, it's interesting when you put things like that in art.
I'm looking it up and I'm seeing a "Behold the Power of Cheese" commercial from 1997. I'm having a hard time finding anything prior to that. And King's Quest V was either 90 or 91. Um, so I don't know if this predates "The Power of Cheese." But I love the correlation, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I think that's so funny. If you want to know my personal theory, this is just a personal theory. I
Mhm.
think the cheese was moldy, and the mold, when it hit whatever liquid was in the wand machine, I I think that's what, I don't know. It makes no sense. I can't make it make sense. However, if the Power of Cheese campaign was in that time or before that time, that makes me think.
Courtney, I really love that you put this thought into it,
I
and
love that. Yeah.
I'm really sorry to say that I think you're wrong. Because yeah, I'm looking at like uh forums
Mhm, mhm.
by like people that are obsessed with advertisements, and
Yeah.
here's, some people are talking about the "Behold the Power of Cheese" ad campaign, and it seems like it's all late 90s.
Yeah, I think it is later. But I still love I just love that core. I think that's
Yeah,
extremely thoughtful to have even thought that up.
I think yeah, it points to a really interesting thing. Like it could have been there could have been some other pop culture reference. Do you know what I mean? Like that is lost, that the cheese puzzle is related to. Something, yeah, something is lost in translation with the cheese puzzle. So this one's from Joseph. He says, "I was just wondering if your love of retro games extends to classic text adventures." He asks
Ah,
about Hitchhiker's Guide to the
sure.
Galaxy.
Yep.
Um, and then he goes on to ask us how we would classify the Portal games, Portal and Portal 2.
Okay,
Are
that's
they
fair.
adventure games? He asks. So let's take the first part first. What's your history with text adventures?
I kind of dig them. I kind of like them. There's something interactive fiction, choose your own adventure game about them. Don't get me wrong, they're hard. Some of the hardest
Yeah.
retro games ever written. But I have to share this. One of my very first like text adventure games I ever played, it came, and you guys might know this if you've been following me for a while, came on a compilation called Game Empire. It was this compilation I got for Christmas, and had all these DOS games and had all these genres. Like, here's some from the adventure game, here's some from action, here's some from, I don't know, digital board games. I found this text adventure game called Humbug, and I could never figure it out. But I loved it. It was just your very average adventure game. You're trying to get into, I think, your grandpa's home, and there's like something wrong. There's something strange and mysterious going on in there. I think at one point I was talking to a shark. I don't know.
Okay.
I was never able to beat it because these games are notoriously difficult, but I think they really do have a charm to them. It really lends itself to using your imagination. And I like that. I know they're out of style. I do not think they will come back, but I think I do think they have a charm to them.
I've played Softporn Adventure. That
is
forgot
about that.
That is the text-based adventure that, number one, it inspired Leisure Suit Larry.
Yes, correct.
Roberta Williams is topless on the cover of it.
Sure is. In a hot tub, yep.
In a hot tub, you can't see anything.
Yeah, you can't see anything. You can try. You won't.
You can look really, really close at it. It won't change it. Softporn Adventure, was basically Leisure Suit Larry. Like, if you've played Leisure Suit Larry, you've basically played Softporn Adventure. Yeah. Like, I think it's pretty almost 1-to-1. One thing that I did do when I was a kid, I was really into the Realm Online, and very early massively multiplayer online role-playing game. And at the time, most massively multiplayer online role-playing games were MUDs. They were text-based online video games, and I tried playing a few of those in that era, but I have the same problem with text adventures as I had with those MUDs. It didn't feel like I was playing with other people. Text adventures don't feel like I'm in a vibrant world to me. I feel
right.
I feel isolated. I feel alone.
That's fair.
And it just it does not strike me the same way. Though I am interested about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, one of the most infamously difficult text adventures of all time.
Yeah.
Is it funny? Have you played it?
I have played a little bit of it.
Okay.
It didn't capture me quite enough, but it is funny. In kind of that Discworldy, nonsensical way.
Yeah.
You know?
All right, well, let's go to the second part of the question. Portal and Portal 2, do you classify those as adventure games?
What an interesting question. I think I don't want to get hate for like my classification opinions, because you know that I do, right, Matt? Like, you've probably seen some of the comments.
I do want to talk about that though, because I think genre is meant to serve you, not, like, genre is our servant, not our master, right? Like, when you use genre to find other things you like, you don't use it to exclude things from your interests. And I do think if a person likes adventure games, it is worth their time to check out Portal.
That, you know what? You've read my mind. That is exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, I would categorize it more as a platformer with puzzles. It's like a puzzle platformer type of a game. But it doesn't matter if you like it. It's going to hold hands with adventure games, right? So if you like adventure games, you might also like Portal. And I kind of had this discussion a long time ago when people were asking if like walking simulators were really games or really adventure games. And I'm like, I I don't know if it matters, because if you like adventure games, you're probably going to like this game too.
Right.
And I think they're linked,
And
so I
that's
think
what that's what we use genre for. If you
yeah,
like this, then you will not necessarily like this, but if you like this, then you should check this out. And I
yeah,
think uh if you like adventure games, you should check out walking simulators. If you
yeah,
like adventure games, you should check out Portal.
yeah, I agree.
It yeah, it doesn't make sense to me to exclude it. Yeah, I could see it being called a puzzle platformer. When I think of puzzle platformers, though, I think of Limbo or um, Braid or something like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if somebody were to tell
I
me,
love Limbo.
"Oh, I've played here's this new puzzle, or here's new, here's
It's
this,
new to us.
yeah. Here's this puzzle platformer. It's called Portal. You should check it out." I would be like, "Oh, I don't. This doesn't feel like the puzzle. This doesn't feel like a puzzle platformer, right?"
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly how. I don't know exactly that it fits into any classification. Maybe it fits into puzzle game, but there's such a strong narrative, and there's such a strong sense of character in the Portal
Yeah.
games.
Yeah.
I would put Portal 1 more, I guess, in if like I had to,
Uh-huh.
right? Which I don't, but if I had to, I would put Portal 1 more in the sense in the place of like, yeah, puzzle games, maybe puzzle
Yeah.
platformers, and I would put
Yeah,
Portal
yeah.
2 more towards adventure game.
That's fair. All right, this next question is from Nick. Nick is a
Hey, Nick.
longtime fan. I recognize your name. Your question to us is, within your all-time favorite adventure games, what are your least favorite puzzles? So his example is, in my case, what are the puzzles I hate the most in, say, King's Quest 3 or Grim Fandango? Those are, in fact, my favorite games. I do have more than that to pull from, though, so I might pull from something else. I think my immediate answer is probably going to be from Sanitarium. That is within my all-time favorite adventure games. And I'm going to lump two of them together. There's a water pipe puzzle, and then there's like some kind, I don't even know how to describe it. It's some kind of thing where if you pull one lever, two levers go up, and then you push one down and three go up, and push another
Oh
one down.
man.
And you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, those are
Those
so bad.
those are so bad. They're so bad.
Yeah.
But those I would say are kind of minor annoyances compared to, say, some of the puzzles in Discworld, the whole game really of Discworld. And Matt's probably not going to agree with me, but there were some clunkers in Sam and Max for me that I just honestly, I don't want to say, like, it's hard to categorize least favorite things, right? You
Right.
know what
Yeah,
you
yeah,
like
yeah.
and you know what you do. But for me, there were some clunkers there.
Do you have a couple examples?
The alligator golf thing, I think, which we talked about
Oh man. Okay.
extensively, it just annoyed me. I think it's
Mhm.
not that I couldn't figure it out. It's just I didn't I didn't really want to be doing it. And I think even though I love Monkey Island 4, I really do. The combat monkey fighting, I think, are some of the worst puzzles ever.
I think
I don't know why
I
I'm doing
think
them.
the combat monkey fighting in Monkey Island 4 is maybe just the worst thing to ever be in a video game.
Just to ever
Not
exist, basically.
not just in a Monkey Island game, not just in an adventure
Yeah.
game. You can't even call it a puzzle. It's the worst idea that anybody has ever put into a
It's worse
game.
than capitalism, you guys. Matt
And you know
hates
what?
it.
If the person who designed that happened to be listening and then was like, and had their feelings hurt, I don't think I'd even feel bad.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
I think
You
this
know
is
how I
like,
feel about the game, and I'm just like, yep, that's true. That
I
is
think,
true.
I don't want, I don't like to make people feel bad, but this is a scenario where I kind of would like the person who made Monkey Combat to feel bad that they
Yeah.
did it. Even
for
if
sure.
it's just so you never do anything even close to that again.
So your favorite game, if I'm recalling, is one of the Monkey Island games, correct?
Yeah, it bounces around. Sometimes it's secret and sometimes it's cursed. But let's see. Worst puzzle in Curse of Monkey Island. it's hard to quantify that,
Yeah.
like you said. And it's hard also because uh, it's hard to think because in Curse the puzzles are so interdependent
Yeah.
that it's hard to isolate one.
Yeah. And Curse is just so charming. I'm even failing. I have a few puzzles in mind, but I don't hate them. They're not my least favorite. You know, getting the gold tooth was a little strange, you know, from Blondebeard, but I love Blondebeard.
I had
In
trouble figuring out the getting the gold tooth puzzle, but I
Okay.
liked it. I
Yeah, I
liked it
did
a
too.
lot.
I did too. In
Once I had that,
in
yeah.
in Mega Monkey, you have to you have to do something with a
Mhm.
jawbreaker that I found particularly weird and just not intuitive to do. And I will say, and you might agree with me and I have more to say on it, the ending parts in Secret on the island itself, I had such a hard time with it. It seemed to advance in difficulty so much for me. I don't know. Maybe I was stressed
Yeah.
out when I play. Look at me,
Man.
people. I get stressed out when I play video games.
I don't think I have a specific puzzle, but I'm going to agree with you that I'm going to even broaden it out. I think just being on Monkey Island is the worst part of Secret of Monkey Island. And anytime I replay that game, I'm like loving it when I'm on Melee Island. I'm loving it when I'm on the ship. And then I get to Monkey Island, and oftentimes I'm like, I don't feel like playing anymore.
Yeah.
And I turn it
Yep.
off.
That's fair. I think these are fair answers.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't know that I have a very specific answer, but yeah, that's what springs to mind. All right. This is from Stefan or Stefan. I think it's probably Stefan from Sweden.
Well, maybe it is
Stefan,
Stefan then.
I think Stefan is the Swedish pronunciation, and Stefan is
My
the
ancestors are Swedish. I am bad at this.
I think I think Stefan is more like the Western European pronunciation.
Yeah.
So basically Stefan just asks if we have played The Dig. So it's basically just a
man.
recommendation email. Have you played The Dig?
Yes, I have. It's
Me
hard.
too.
Seriously, LucasArts, what are you doing? That game I very much struggled with. I know it has kind of a beloved nostalgic thing for people. I found it immensely difficult. And honestly, I don't remember a lot about it. It's been at least 12 years since I played it, since I booted that up. But I do remember it being aggravating. What do you think?
So when I played it the first time, it was incredibly hard.
Yeah.
I went back to it maybe like 5-6 years ago, and I found it a lot easier. Like I made my way through it. I really enjoyed it. I didn't find myself banging my head against it as much as I did when I was a kid. As a kid, that game is incredibly hard.
Yes.
I don't exactly know what it is about it, but somehow it does not penetrate the kid brain the way that the other LucasArts games do. But the puzzle where you have to reassemble the bones of an alien turtle in the exact right way to bring it back to life is just about the hardest adventure game puzzle I've ever played.
It's no joke, man.
It is not intuitive. It is. There are pieces that look a lot like each other. There's like a bone that looks like a head that is actually the tailbone.
Yeah.
It's so hard, and you can't have one piece out of place.
I think
it doesn't continue to clue you. Like it's not like the turtle comes to life and you can notice that one of the arms is backwards, or the turtle comes to life and you can the turtle comes to life, looks exactly like a turtle, and then melts into goo. So you have it's not like a better way to design that puzzle would be the turtle comes to life and again is wrong.
Right.
and then you can look at what's wrong and then go back and fix it.
I think that being said, like, I think Stefan wants to know, he didn't directly ask a question, but I think he wants to know if he's saying that, the voice acting was good and the music and the graphics makes sense for LucasArts. I think he mostly wants to know if this holds up, as well as he may or may not think it does. And just by this conversation that we're having, I don't think it does. I don't think the dig holds up.
I was going to say the opposite. I think it wasn't. I think in its time, it was poorly timed. Like, I don't think it didn't fit in with the library of LucasArts games, and so when you're playing it expecting a LucasArts game, you don't get that, and makes the game more frustrating and less enjoyable. But now if you go back and you think, oh, this is a game that is very serious and difficult and designed in part by Steven Spielberg, you then know a little bit more what to expect. I think in that way it really holds up. I think it is better in the modern day revisiting it than it was when it came out. And I think it's also interesting that, and I like both of these games, but Loom and The Dig were designed by Brian Moriarty. Moriarty, so.
Yes.
It seems he's like the black sheep of the LucasArts family.
Yes, he's the wild card.
The games that he developed have very specific taste.
Yeah, I agree.
Here's another thing. The Dig was written by infamous homophobe Orson Scott Card.
Good gravy. So. I am so sad that he has a stain on the LucasArts history, because he also wrote some of the insult sword fighting quips from Secret.
Oh,
right?
Does it? Did he? I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
All right. So what's our next question?
Our next question comes from Steve. He wants to be called, he signed it as Steve.
Hey, Steve.
And he has a game recommendation for us. He wants to know if we have tried The Invincible. He describes it as a first-person sci-fi adventure game that's based on the novel of the same name. He just wants to also say that it is described as a walking simulator, and then he says, but don't let that turn you off. Oh, sir, no.
That would never turn me off. Yeah, I love
turned on. We were actually turned on.
I'm turned on right now. It's uncomfortable. We should stop the recording.
No, I have not played it, but I have absolutely no qualms about walking simulators. I enjoy them.
Yeah, and The Invincible looks amazing. I have not played it. It looks very pretty. It looks amazing. I guess you're exploring some sci-fi world as an astronaut. I don't know.
Okay.
This is going on the recommendations list. We got to play this one, Roses.
Okay. Sci-fi, I'm going to say this. Sci-fi is not my favorite genre when it comes to video games. It's not my favorite, but I will always give something a chance. Especially if it's an adventure game, because that kind of spans so many things,
This game looks like, how Firewatch was like a big leap forward for the quote-unquote walking simulator genre?
For sure.
The Invincible's given me similar vibes. Not that it's similar to Firewatch, but similar in that, like, this looks like another jump forward that it like could be the new standard bearer for like the best example of it. But who knows? I haven't played it. Maybe it'll disappoint me, but just based on visuals alone and these trailers, it looks real good.
It actually does. I see what you mean with the Firewatch. Firewalk. Sorry, I just started. This is a David Lynch podcast now. Firewalk with me. No, I can see the how it reminds you of Firewatch.
All right, so this email is not signed, but this person asks, Stardew Valley episode when?
I mean, isn't every episode a little bit of a Stardew?
Every episode's a little bit of a Stardew Valley episode.
A little bit of a Stardew Valley. We seem to talk about it all the time. We talk about it not on the podcast, but I could be convinced to do a deep dive.
My feeling is, let's see how we feel after the new update hits consoles, because I play Stardew Valley on Switch, and I'm not keen on moving over to a different way of playing it, because I've put so many hours on the Switch. Like, it wouldn't feel comfortable for me to jump to another console now with that
Yeah,
game. So
for sure.
let's see. When I finally get that update in my hands and I'm digging through and I'm using chewy bluegrass, we'll see if I'm inspired to do an episode, and we'll see how Rose, we'll see how you're feeling at that point.
Yeah, for sure. And I also needed, as I had said in previous episodes, I had really just played this not long ago.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard, even with updates. And I'm sure they're amazing because they always are.
Yeah.
I just needed a little bit of time before I'm like, yeah, let's plant the parsnips again. Yes, talk to Mayor Lewis again. The next question comes from Blake. Hi, Blake. He says he's loving the podcast. Thank you so much. They say, I've always enjoyed the narrative side of adventure games, but I feel the gameplay and puzzle aspect haven't evolved nicely, as we all do. And he actually includes a list of cliches like crowbars, first person mazes, safe behind a painting. Oh, yeah, you know it.
Oh, my God, yeah.
You know it. Oh,
yeah.
Here's a good one. Gathering items for a costume. Yes.
Oh, man.
That's a good one. So, yeah, he had this list of cliches. Do you have any recommendations that don't feel so derivative? I would love to know your thoughts. You know, it's tough because I feel like the very nature of adventure games has some of these things. And some of these things that, you know, they're more tropey. For example, a safe behind a painting. I feel that's kind of a classic trope across so many mediums, not just adventure games, but noir films and books and mysteries and stuff like that. So I'm not mad at that particular that particular trope, we'll call it. As of recommendations that don't feel so derivative, I think the best route then to go is something like a walking sim, or something that's maybe even lighter on the puzzle aspects.
I don't necessarily think you need to go that direction. I think you just need to go away from simple point and clicks.
Yeah. Honestly, let's be honest, you might need to go away from retro and just kind of yeah.
Yeah. Is Blake specifically looking for retro games
they
that
don't
feel so derivative?
But so, they say they do enjoy the narrative side of adventure games.
I would recommend some of the more like kind of experimental games that aren't necessarily you pick up items and combine them and like use them. And so like Chants of Sennaar, for example, is a game about decoding a language, right? Well, decoding several languages. You're like a monk in it's basically a fictionalized, well, I was gonna say a fictionalized version of the Tower of Babel, but I'm pretty sure the Tower of Babel was fictional too. But but yeah, you're climbing a tower and you're meeting all these different cultures, and you don't know what language you don't speak their language, so they say something, and in a little journal you have, you match them up, like the words you find up with images, and you know, like you'll find a thing labeled, you'll find like a switch, maybe there's two words on either side of the switch, and if you move it left, a door opens. If you move it right, the door closes, so you know that the symbol on the left is open and the symbol on the right is closed. And you know, maybe the symbol above the switch is door, right?
Yeah.
So it starts from there, and then it builds out, and you have to make some really thoughtful deductions.
That's
by the
very
end.
unique.
Mhm.
It's a very unique puzzle. Off the bat, I was going to say something like Night in the Woods or Read Only Memories, but now that
Okay.
you've said that, I would, for kind of less conventional, I would also say things like Contradiction and Who Pressed
Mhm.
Mute on Uncle Marcus, where they're just interesting ways to get to the end of a game. Obviously, Contradiction is more about deduction, and I like how
Yeah.
they did the deduction part. I think it works very well. Everybody knows my thoughts on Uncle Marcus because I have lost my ability to skip cutscenes. But had I not, I think that's an interesting way to suss out ideas and get through a game. You know, it's
Yeah.
interrogation, it's listening, it's eavesdropping. So I don't think those are very particularly derivative of anything. You know?
Yeah, I think that's the sort of places you have to look. Like I'm kind of
Yeah.
scrolling through my Steam library right now, and I'm looking at like Strange Horticulture.
Yes, that's a good one. That's a great one.
You have to look at a book of plants. You get plants, um, and you have people coming in that have certain ailments, or they give you certain clues as to
Hmm.
what properties certain plants have, and you have to kind of look through this book and sort through your clues, and you have to identify plants. So when somebody comes to you asking for, say, farmer's worry,
Yeah.
you have to figure out which plant that you have is farmer's worry
Hmm.
and give them the right plant.
I love that. Yeah, that's a very eh, I love that mechanic. I had another one and I lost it. You when you said strange horticulture something. Oh, right. And, you know, this might be cliche or maybe some people think it's overrated or over talked about, but I would also say Papers, Please. I think that's
Oh
a
my god,
very
yes.
yeah, I think that's a very interesting mechanic. It's very narrative, but it's got unique things that you do in that game.
Do you want to explain how that works?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. So in Papers, Please, you were playing what is your title exactly?
Like a
Immigration.
border, like an immigration, like border guard,
Yeah, like
and
border
yeah.
patrol. And so basically you are checking people's documents, passports, or probably papers, please. And you have to make some interesting, sometimes unethical, sometimes ethical decisions on who you stamp through essentially. So let's say there is an illegal immigrant, but you really want to help this person. It's going to go against your job, right?
Right.
But but that's up to you to decide. These are decisions that you can make. So the puzzles are obviously they're not they're not switch, but if they're not those kind of puzzles, they're
Yeah.
different.
You're scrutinizing passports and other
Yes.
documents, and every day the rules on who's allowed in and what documents different people need change, and
Yes.
what stamps they need, and what and you have to like talk to them, and if they say something that contradicts what's on their paperwork, then like it's it's that's a very good recommendation. I'll do one more, which
Hmm.
is came out in 2021. It's called Overboard, and it is a time cycling game by Inkle. That's the developer. Where you just killed your husband.
Hmm.
That's not a spoiler. That is the first
That's
moment
the
of the
thing.
game.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
gotcha. That's the
You
thing.
yes, you just killed your husband. Now you have to get away with it.
Yeah.
And there's several ways to get away with it, and like it's sort of like a period piece. It's from maybe 1920s ish or something like that.
Hmm.
And you walk around the boat and you get to know everybody. You get arrested a bunch of different times, and then you just keep cycling the day over and over and over
Nice.
until you get all the different endings, and you just try different ways to get away with murder. Um,
I love it.
yeah. So
I love it.
I think that's where Blake needs to look, is in these sort of experimental
Yeah.
non-inventory point and click based games. Yeah, thanks, Blake. Okay, this one is from Marcus. He basically just wants to know if we've played What Remains of Edith Finch.
I have. I have played, and special bonus, there's a video on it on my YouTube channel. So you can
Mm.
just Google Pushing Up Roses, Edith Finch, and I'm sure it will come up right away. It is, I won't give any spoilers if you don't want me to, but it is an overall positive review.
Yeah, I've played What Remains of Edith Finch. I really enjoyed it. There's some parts of the story that feel a little contrived.
Sure.
But the idea of exploring a house, so that's what you do in What Remains of Edith Finch. You explore a house,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not really puzzles, right? It's, again, more of this walking simulator genre.
Yeah.
You you're exploring a house, and you're sort of putting together how everybody in your family died. And each family member's story is represented by these. It pulls you out of the house into new narratives. I think there was a suicide, and you have to live through a couple of this person's miserable, repetitive days,
Yeah.
in sort of a symbolic way, to understand why he did what he did. And yeah, it's a game about discovering I guess the ways that people die
I mean, it is,
through symbolism.
it is a ghosts of the past, shadows of the past kind
Mhm.
of game. Yeah, I like those kind of things. I
Yeah.
live for those kind of darker kind of things. So
Yeah, I thought it was a really good game. I don't know if
yeah.
we will do a deep dive on it, but it's something to keep in mind. What Remains of Edith Finch, I think, is a really good game.
All right. So our next question comes from Zia again. That's what she says. She says, or they. I'm not quite sure. It's me, Zia, again.
Oh yeah,
Welcome back.
people. If you guys want to put your pronouns in, that would be helpful. I
That would
think
be helpful.
we've been doing some gender assuming based on the traditional gendered names, but yeah, if you want to put
Yeah,
your pronouns,
Zia's a little bit of a tough one. I'm not quite sure.
we will always honor your pronouns if you
Yeah.
include them.
But thank you for coming back, Zia. They're wondering if either of us have ever finished Kathy Rain, and what our thoughts are. First got it because I saw Roses do a video on playing the first 20 minutes or so, and now I'm replaying it. Yeah, I finished it. I did finish the whole thing. I think what I did, if I'm recalling my own work correctly, I hope I am, is I think I did a first impressions. There was a time when I did more so first impression videos on new adventure games. I had met the Kathy Rain developers at PAX when it was
Okay.
before development, and I played a demo there as well. They're really great guys, and I did finish it, and I really liked it. I'm going to say something that is minorly people might not agree with or find just innocuous. I thought it was a little pick me girl. I thought the main character
Oh.
of Kathy Rain was a little pick me. Keep in mind that this was developed by a group of men with best intentions.
Right.
They wanted a strong female protagonist. And I think they accomplished that. But I think as a woman myself, I can identify that a little bit. However, that being said, I really loved the game. It reminded me of Gabriel Knight, just the whole atmosphere, very mysterious, very brooding, and I did enjoy it as a whole.
I was gonna say the exact same thing
Really?
about Gabriel. Yeah, it is Gabriel Knight. It is alternate universe Gabriel Knight. It is.
Yeah. Because
It
he feels like a pick me dude,
it
right?
could have,
Like,
yeah, it
it's
could have been a Gabriel
interesting.
Knight. And Kathy Rain has a bunch of, she's got like forced quirks where it feels like she's like, I'm not like other girls.
Yeah, there's actually almost a verbatim. I think she says that, is I'm not like other girls, and I know what they're going for. I do. I'm not lost on point or nuance or anything like that or character. I personally I cringe when I hear stuff
There's a
like that.
way to make a character. I mean, there's the way to make a character a strong female, and not to say that this isn't a type of person. This type of person exists.
Yeah.
Um, there are strong females in the world who don't display many feminine characteristics,
Hmm.
or display a lot of countercultural characteristics, and there are many people in the world who display countercultural characteristics that don't really fit them, that feel like they are doing it for show, which isn't something I really begrudge people, because like who cares? Anybody can be aesthetically however they want, even if it's but anyway, like I don't see what's worse about somebody wearing, you know, the uniform of a punk rocker versus wearing the uniform of a like Abercrombie and Fitch kid. Do people still wear Abercrombie and Fitch? Is that store still existing?
Know. I don't know what the kids are doing. I'm not hip like that. I will also entertain the idea and context of she's not like other girls because she has this kind of power. So I can see her. I could see that line also being taken as not a pick-me, but no, I'm really not. Like,
I'm honestly not like other girls. I'm not like other humans.
I'm not like anybody. Yeah, exactly. So I will also entertain that, but
I see exactly what you mean. It does feel like a couple of men trying to think of what would make a girl interesting, and sort of discounting the things about femininity that make women interesting, right? Like, but all that said, I really loved Kathy Rain. Yeah, it felt like a long lost Gabriel Knight game, and people are really down on the ending of that game for some reason. I think because it gets really metaphysical.
It does, yeah. I remember liking it, but
people weren't expecting that. But the Gabriel Knight games get really metaphysical, and Indiana Jones gets really metaphysical, and like you get like it was about a woman becoming like a paranormal detective, right? You gotta expect by the end you're gonna experience some paranormal shit.
I wonder if people were just surprised, kind of like the surprise and like the Prestige, where you think you know what this plot is, but then it's like, what? It's this? I'm not going to do any spoilers for that. That I went into that movie blind, and I was like, what? So maybe people were just taken aback that it felt so grounded. You know, kind of like Thimbleweed Park, right? It feels grounded in a certain reality. Yeah. And then it's not. So I feel like I liked the ending, though.
Our next question comes from James. He just has 2 recommendations.
Okay, hit me.
Number 1, Mixed Up Fairy Tales.
I love Mixed Up Fairy Tales. I love Mixed Up Mother Goose. I love Mixed Up Fairy Tales. They're so sweet. I just like them.
They're very sweet. They're very fun games. Because what these are early Sierra games that are basically meant for kids.
Yeah, they are.
Where it's a bunch of fairy tale characters in a world that are all missing something important. And you have to go around the world, find the important thing, and then bring them back to the characters.
Yeah. It's Fetch Quest the game.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything more complicated than any puzzle more complicated than that in the game.
Yeah.
But they're very cute. Yeah, it's very cute early Sierra games. Okay, second recommendation. Roses, have you ever played any of the Journeyman Project games?
I am sad to say that I have not played any of them, so I can't give you an opinion on that.
So, James specifically says the Journeyman Project 3. Yeah. Having not played either of the first Journeyman Project games, I still really enjoyed this FMV-laden time-traveling romp through 3 mystical locations of El Dorado, Atlantis, and Shangri-La. That's what that game's about? You have my attention.
Did you say FMV live act it? You have my attention.
And El Dorado, Atlantis, and Shangri-La. That's cool. Yeah, okay. This is going on the recommendation list.
Thank you.
Journeyman Project 3. I've never played them. Thank you for the recommendation.
All right. I think we have time.
Are we coming to our last question?
I was going to say, I think we have time for one last question. This comes from... Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we have other ones that we didn't get to. So if you emailed us, you might hear your question in a later episode. But also, don't stop emailing.
Yeah, keep for sure.
Okay.
We only have so many time, and we ramble... You know how we are. It's what we do.
Yeah, this is one of our longest episodes. So,
and that, you know what? I'm okay with it for a Q&A. People
me too.
know what they're clicking on, and we have thoughts. And thoughts. Like
and
I said, yeah.
thoughts.
So this comes from Chris from Germany.
And
Nice.
thoughts with thoughts.
Guten Tag. Thoughts with thoughts.
We should let our thoughts speak their thoughts.
I agree. We should do that.
Next
I'll
episode.
invite them. I'll invite them in next time.
Not
this one. I will answer this one for you, Chris, but next time it'll be from
next time we'll let the thoughts. We'll let the thoughts answer them.
All right, so they'd like to start out by saying, as Matt is a huge fan of Oberdin, congratulations, by the way, for not being only a special boy, but also having impeccable taste. Goodness.
Yeah!
And I love Laura Bow and Jessica Fletcher, obviously. They're interested in hearing our thoughts on just detective games in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what makes a good detective game? What makes a good detective in a game, even? And I've always had this topic in the back of my mind for a video, but it's I'm just kind of wondering how many ideas I can really grab from this. So I'm going to say I love the idea of Dagger of Amon-Ra.
Okay.
The reason I don't think it's going to speak to people is because it's too difficult. It's that we're for Dagger of Amon-Ra, they're putting together sometimes illogical puzzles or unwinnable puzzles with gathering evidence and being not a detective, you're a reporter, but you are playing detective. It's a detective game. You know, you're gathering evidence. I love the idea of collecting the evidence, interrogating people, eavesdropping on people. I think those are great mechanics.
Right.
However, they combined it with some of that moon logic, some of those difficulties. So that's unfortunate, right? I think otherwise it would be a good detective game. I think The Colonel's Bequest is a great detective game because it has such an emphasis on eavesdropping and really paying attention to that evidence.
I think there are a few things that make a good detective game. Mm-hmm. One of them is the elimination of those in point and click inventory moon logic puzzles. I don't think those fit in a detective game. So
Let's
I
be
wouldn't.
Honest.
I mean, I consider like Tex Murphy games, for example, most of them to be just point and click adventures with a detective in them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's the way a lot of detective games go. They're puzzle games or point and click adventure games with a detective as the character. Games that I consider detective games would be Return of the Obra Dinn is one. Mm-hmm. Case of the Golden Idol is one.
Contradiction, I think, is flat out a detective game, blatantly.
I've still not played Contradiction, but
it's fantastic. It's really good. Highly recommend.
I think The Sexy Brutale is a detective game. The Sherlock Holmes consulting detective games, not the Sherlock Holmes what is it? The Case of the Rose Tattoo, Case of the Serrated Scalpel, or the later Sherlock Holmes Frogwares games. Those have detective elements.
Right.
Like there is deduction in those games, but I don't necessarily consider those detective games. I consider those adventure games with starring a detective. But the consulting detective games, I think, are detective games. Paradise Killer, I think of as a detective game. All right, so what ties all these together? And it is deduction.
Yeah, it's deduction.
It is that you have clues, and you have to yourself in your brain, not your character just makes the deductions in front of you and you get to watch that. You have to make the deductions, and you have to be correct for the game to proceed.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I mentioned Daggers, because it does have those elements. It's just masked by how completely absurd and difficult it can be. And I think Colonel's Bequest is a better example.
Now, I will say Paradise Killer also has like these weird platformy Metrovania
Mm,
things where you're jumping around the town and air dashing, which is very strange.
yeah.
But Paradise Killer has, and you don't have to be correct at the end of Paradise Killer. You can accuse the wrong person if you want, and you do get an ending. And I don't think it tells you got it wrong, but
Right.
you in Paradise Killer, you can sit down and you can write down all your clues and you can really think it through,
Yeah.
and make some deductions, and uh, that's what you have to do in case of the Golden Idol.
Yeah.
You won't progress if you don't get the right questions, and that's really hard to do, or right answers. Is really hard to do, to present somebody with a puzzle that they have to solve that they can't guess.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's why a lot of these other, game starring detectives tend to just put a bunch of puzzles in. But
Yeah. It's
um
honestly, I think I've maybe said this before. I think mystery games are very difficult
yeah,
to design.
in most cases you want the action, like the game designer wants the action to unfold in front of you, and they
Mhm.
have to let that happen. What are they going to do? Like, if you don't figure it out, then the action doesn't unfold.
Yeah.
So I understand the challenges of building a game like that, but again, I think the games that I've listed are all games that did it really well. And one of the ways that these games accomplish that is by quizzing you
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
saying, like, hey, okay, what do you think happened here? And if you don't get it, they're like, okay, nope, go back and try and figure
Yeah.
it out. You didn't quite get it this time.
Yeah, and
Or
famously Dagger has that. Famously, it has a quiz at the end. But again,
Mhm.
it's so difficult. It's just
Yeah.
way too difficult. But it does have that. It does make an attempt to use that mechanic.
I would also say that the needing to get 3 or more things correct for the game to confirm that you did it right
Yeah.
is a very good mechanic that's in Oberdin. Um, and in case of the Golden Idol, you have to get one section
Yeah.
correct, but it'll tell you if you
We
have.
are skipping over one, a very blatant one, Matt.
What's that? Yeah, what's that?
LA Noir.
I've not played LA Noir.
Really? Oh, I
Really? Yeah.
love it. I
Mm,
really do. I really do love it. And I would call it a detective adventure game where you are interrogating people and deciding
mhm.
whether you believe them or not believe them or trust them,
Yeah.
and you're following leads as well. So I think that's a pretty good modern example. Well,
Yeah.
modernish, I guess.
The other games that I will mention here are the Daveki Studios games. So that is The Infectious Madness of Dr. Decker,
Yeah.
The Shapeshifting Detective, and Murderous Muses. And
Ooh, mysterious.
they are FMV games. Not so much the Dark Knights with Poe and Monroe. That's more like a choose your own adventure game. But the other three, yeah, you are in Shapeshifting Detective and Infectious Madness of Dr. Decker, you are conducting interviews,
Yeah.
and you have to put together clues and think and ask the right questions and think through what you've heard. In Murderous Muses, you're just like watching interviews that have
Okay.
already happened.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
the thing that separates these a little bit from these other games, these other games are just like impeccably designed mysteries with solid answers.
Hmm.
The Daveki Studios games um have randomized, like they randomize who the guilty person is
Right.
each playthrough. And some of the things that you hear from people are different based on who is actually guilty, but
Yeah.
some of them are the same. So there's a lot of wonkiness in what you need to pay attention to and what you don't, and that's the one big flaw I think about those games. But I love. I will play anything Daveki Studios ever releases because I
That
love
sounds
their
like a
games.
glowing recommendation.
Yeah, I'm a really, really big fan of them. And I
Nice.
love that Dr. Decker, I think is their first game, or it might be their second game.
Mhm.
Um, one thing I love about it is that it has like your interviews are conducted through text parser.
Yeah.
You have to listen to what people are saying and then type in the right questions to
Right.
hear to get the right information, and you can miss stuff, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I like that
yeah,
mechanic a lot.
I have over answered this question, so
Matt tends to do that. He's like, "Oh, a simple question? Well, hold
well,
my
I
beer."
think honestly, I don't think. Yeah, I think what makes a good detective game is not a simple question. I think it's
It's
something people
not.
have been
It's not
wrestling with.
simple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think adventure games have been wrestling with this since the very beginning of their existence, and only in the past like 10 years have people started to figure out how to do it right.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with what you're saying too. It's like adventure game can have a detective in it, but
Yeah.
there's no mechanic that you know, I view Grim Fandango as a noir
Mhm.
mystery
Yeah.
game, but I don't necessarily think it's a detective game, but it is like you know what I mean? There's so many ways we can branch off here, you know?
There's mysteries in a lot of adventure games, and
Yeah,
you don't have to understand the mystery for your character to solve it. That's
correct.
the big difference. Um, you know, George Stobart will figure out who is at the bottom of the cult of Baphomet or whatever, without you, the player, figuring it out.
Yes, correct.
You, the player, don't
Correct.
have to figure it out. George Stobart will figure it out for you. We're talking about Broken Sword, by the way, for
Yes.
any non-adventure game players here. Um, but in Return of the Obra Dinn, you won't solve it if you don't uh if you don't solve it. Like, you can't
Right.
get to the end
Yes.
of the game. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Okay.
I think
Anyway,
these are good answers. I think these make sense.
all right. Thank you everybody for the questions. Remember to email us your questions and recommendations, and anything else you want. We got our first fan art
I'm so
uh
happy.
from Michael, and it's really cool.
It's so sweet.
It's so sweet. Thank
Maybe we'll
you
put it
for
in the
that.
show notes.
Yeah, that would be great.
That's a good idea.
So yeah, anything you want to send us, hey, or what we've gotten since our last Q&A episode in emails is game keys. Feel free to send those.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, always feel free. Matt's always going to play whatever you give him. I'm
Mhm.
kind of a busybody, just being artist and YouTuber, so I don't always have time to play what you send, but we're always grateful to hear about it.
If you send us your games, we will check them out. I can't guarantee we'll dedicate an episode to them, and
Yeah.
I can't guarantee when we will talk about them, but we will always at least try to get around to talking to them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, email us mattandroses@gmail.com. Roses, I don't know if we want to tease it at all. I'm really looking forward to the next episode.
No, don't. Just
I
tease it in a way that you're like, "Oh, you gotta be there for this next one." That's what you should say.
So us two and a special guest will be talking about a game that we've mentioned on this episode a lot,
Woohoo!
and
Very excited.
a second game.
Yes,
And that's all
that's
I'll
correct.
say. And that
Yep,
second
that's all
game
you need to say.
may or may not have some relation to the first game in interesting ways. Okay, that's all I'll say. That's all I'll
Okay.
say. I'm really
It's a
excited.
tease.
It's one of the episodes I've been most excited for in the past couple months. Or
Nice. Nice.
wait, we've only been going for a couple months, couple weeks. I lose track of time. What
What
is
even
time?
is time?
What is it? What's it
Who
doing?
who are we?
Why does it do that?
All right, I think we can successfully wrap up this episode then.
Sure.
Matt, I said our slogan last time. I will give
Well,
you the
we
chance
got
to say it this time.
we got to say a few housekeeping things
Oh,
besides
fine.
email us at mattandroses@gmail.com. Also, we're part of the Adventure Game Hotspot Network. Check them out at adventuregamehotspot.com. Lastly, make sure you guys are reviewing us on things. We just had a really cool, really I'm really happy that people are digging the show. We just had a spike in listenership, but we
Yes.
did not get a spike in reviews. So I'm
Guys,
telling
he's
you,
gonna keep asking. If you don't do it, so please.
I'm telling you, it is like the only way this show will grow is if you guys review and share and tell people about it. That's
Yeah.
literally the only way that the show will grow. And if this show doesn't grow, we're gonna eventually stop doing it. So if you like the
I
show,
mean, I hope we're eventually gonna stop at some point. We
what?
can't do this
No.
till we're 80.
No, yeah, we can. Of course we
Ugh.
can. You're not going to be playing hidden object games when you're 80 years old.
I'm still gonna be like, Matt, I'm playing Disco Elysium again, and I'm so stressed.
And we'll be like, wait, I forgot every single thing in it.
What do I do? Would you like a Werther's candy?
Shove it through the microphone. I'll put my mouth up to the speaker.
We are going to be hilarious old people. I'm just
Oh, yeah.
putting that out there.
It's going to be so good. So yeah, if you guys want to hear us keep doing this when we're 80, we need, okay, in order for us to do this when we're 80, we need, no, hold on. Let's say,
oh boy,
50,000 listeners. If we have 50,000 listeners per episode, we will do the show till
we'll do the show
80.
till we're 80. Yep. I look forward to it, Matt. I hope our friendship is strong enough to do this show weekly until we're 80.
Yeah. You guys just need to like multiply the amount of listeners by like 50s.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Yeah, all right.
I like this goal.
Well, okay, so podcast is art, and art is suffer.
Da, 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 da.